Hey everybody, welcome to the show. You read that title right. We're doing another one of these. We really wanted to, address some of the now 500 strong questions in the queue of questions that we have in our Discord. And I spent a tireless day perusing them and picking out the best of them. And we have two of the pillars of Ember Sword here with us, Loren and Joris. Say hello.
Hello.
Hey everyone!
One of you followed the instruction and just went very jazzy with it. Awesome. So we got a fun lineup of questions. Let's just jump right in, deep end. Is there a plan of integrating a pet companion for example, dragons or wolves in Ember Sword?
Heck yes. We're actually huge fans of pets, and we'll indeed be integrating that into Ember Sword and much beyond just integrating it. In fact, I'd say in the sense that we'll have a nice variety of different and unique pets for you to have, but also those pets will have some slight utilitarian advantages, like for example giving you some secondary inventory space to carry heavy stuff around for you, and also more so than just giving you a cool pet to play with. These pets are actually going to be on chain. You'll own them as an NFT, you'll be able to trade them, and you'll even be able to breed them and do quite a number of other really cool interactions with them to really get the kind of pet that fits with you.
Ooh, what about a pet rock?
Oh yeah, we're definitely into the pet rock.
A pet rock. Yeah.
My good sir, I've caught you in a logical fallacy. How do you breed a pet rock?
Well, I'm sure there is some very detailed lore-based explanation for that, but I'm going to leave that to Sam when he comes on the podcast again.
Do not Google how to breed pet rock.
Too late.
It's a family show. Yeah, it's great that we are, in fact, thinking of integrating that, and it's nice that we are pretty decently far along in terms of conceptualizing the pet aspect of Ember Sword. Here's something more juicy. Will items be sellable when a player is offline?
Yes, they will be. So there's an auction house in Ember Sword, and you can just list an item in the auction house for a specific price. Once it's listed, you can go offline, you can go on vacation. When you come back, and if it's sold, you'll get a nice little notification saying, hey, you sold your beautiful pet rock. Go and collect your tokens.
Nice synergy.
How could you, though, sell that wonderful pet rock? I mean, come on. Heartless, right?
Yeah, a little heartless, but he peed on the rug. So.
Some messed up rocks, dude. Thanos is a dark place. But yeah, offline, I think, meant more so if anybody can buy them outside of game. Will we have any type of interface set up on some type of website? Do we plan on having an app? Anything? I know this is
Yes.
very far away, but
So there is the auction. Sorry, there's the auction house inside of the game in which you can list things, but they're listed on chain, right? So you can then buy them through, for example, the website as well, which facilitates the same trades, right? And third-party exchanges may also be listed. For example, OpenSea.
Sweet. Well, sticking with that theme of trading, will there be a quote-unquote trade window to give items or trade goods to other players?
Yes.
How would that function?
Ember Sword's first and foremost a social game, right? So we want players to be able to trade with one another, and we really try to facilitate parties and that sort of thing. And trading is just part of one of those things. So essentially, you just click on a player, say trade. If they accept, you get a window. You can place items in there. Once you click accept, the window freezes as like a confirmation to avoid cheaters, right? And then once you've both accepted, you trade your items.
Nice. Moving on, there is quite a lot of hubbub about Solarwood being the first nation, and some people are, very curious as to how we're going to address, different nations integrating into Solarwood, players from different nations integrating into Solarwood, considering it's going to be the first release. So, if Solarwood is the first nation to be released, does that mean that all players will have Solarwood as their home nation first? And what about the home nation exclusive resources in that case?
So, First of all, obviously, with Solarwood being the first nation to be released, yes, all the players will have Solarwood as their home nation first. Now, about the home nation exclusive resources, these resources are kind of in a tiered system. And because we have this sort of tiered scheme of bringing the game to the players by building it together with the community and releasing new areas of the game and new skills and new resources and such on a quarterly basis, the home nation exclusive resources will probably take quite a while to actually enter the game. So for now, we're not that worried about it because our assumption is they won't be available yet from the start, right? So that's not really a concern for us. Of course, one of the other things that I've heard people ask about is, well, what does that mean? You know, because if everyone starts at Solarwood, doesn't it mean that all these Solarwood players will then level up and be really strong? And then when another nation goes online, that nation is going to be at a disadvantage against these high-level Solarwood players. So we don't believe that's an issue because there is some mechanics in the game that will rebalance this almost automatically as we open up the other nation. Because each of these nations obviously has a limited set of resources, both in-game resources and on-chain resources. And everyone wants to get their hands on those resources, of course. So the moment a new nation starts out empty, no players there, it is super attractive to go there because there be treasures, right? And there's no other players to claim them. And so what we're going to support is nation switching. So you'll simply be able to, once the new nation opens up, you'll be able to switch your character to a new nation. Obviously, you can't do that every day, right? There's some kind of a cooldown involved there. But this basically just means that an even representation of the players that are present in Solarwood, let's say, Duscaron opens up or so, right? An even representation of those players will likely make the decision to go to Duscaron and be part of that nation and benefit from all the new resources and areas that have unlocked, right? So it won't be that Duscaron will be all brand new players with brand new characters with no levels.
It'll be just a natural migration of the people.
Exactly.
That's very well thought out, actually. That's awesome to hear. Will account sharing be a thing?
No. No account sharing. I mean, your character is a representation of you as a player, right? So that can't split that up. But NFTs, however, so let's say you own a piece of land, that you can share, right? So you can, for example, lend out your land to a friend so they can play with it, or your pet, or any other NFT for that matter. So your character isn't, but the NFTs or on-chain items, they are.
Well, this might be too far along in the process, but how would that renting out process work?
Well, good question. Roughly speaking, you can... There's a smart contract which is responsible for the lending. It's basically a contract in which you lock up the NFT, and then you can give access or authority of that NFT to some other player. So let's say you, Svetlin, had a piece of land, and you wanted Loren to be able to place a guild house on there and create fun events for the community. Then you could put your land piece into a smart contract specifically for lending, and then you can say, all right, Loren is allowed to be an authoritarian on this piece of land and place buildings and do things on the land.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I didn't think NFTs facilitated that type of renting out of quote unquote renting out of property, but it's awesome to hear that we can implement something of the sort.
You might find yourself even lending out your pet rock for breeding purposes.
Stop it.
Leave the pet rock alone.
If this was monetized, it would be so demonetized. It would be negative. We'd be bleeding money.
We will not rest in this podcast until the pet rock has become a valid Ember Sword meme.
The goddamn art community is gonna have a field day with this one.
Careful what you wish for. Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that. Crap, they have all our faces on videos too. This sucks.
No, Svetlin, don't mention it.
This is getting worse. Quick. Something juicy. We're doing technical tests right now, right? Everybody knows this. We've released a couple of blog posts, hell, even a podcast on the topic. And, it stands to reason that, of course, we've shared as much. There are going to be many more in the future. Naturally, some progress is going to start getting accrued over these tests and alphas. So the question is, will progress roll over from these tests and alphas?
Yeah, so obviously in the early phases, during testing and also to some extent during the alpha, there'll be these checkpoints where we will reset the progress of your character, right? Just to keep things a little balanced and fair. I mean, we won't have people who participated in the pre-alpha test suddenly have leveled up characters from there. But of course, due to the nature of our game, the NFTs that you've collected in any of these testing phases, they will last forever. So character progress, expect a couple of resets, and then at some point when we feel we've hit enough maturity for the game and enough of a player base, we will announce that that'll be it in terms of the resets. But NFTs, those are yours forever.
Of course, naturally. Well, as more people start testing, more people are going to start playing, and that, of course, means somebody will want to take advantage of the system. How are you going to handle cheating and scripting?
So we're working with a really cool AI company here in Denmark, and they're basically specializing in game-based cheat detection, as well as quite a lot of other things that we haven't really touched on very much yet, I think. But just to answer the cheating question, essentially we're using AI to detect cheaters and outliers. And we won't initially be banning them automatically, just to make sure that the AI works correctly before we start randomly banning people. But as the AI matures and the model becomes better and better, it will be automatically able to detect a cheater and say, yep, this is no way a real player, and immediately boot them out of the game.
Yeah, and obviously, we've showcased this on multiple occasion. Still, at the same time, obviously, the community is immensely important to us. So the good thing is, this type of AI can also just spot these cases, chuck them out temporarily if it's clear enough that there might be an issue, and then we can still throw it up for human review afterwards, of course, because it would be really annoying, obviously, to get banned from a game you love this much and you spend this much time on just because of the fact that there was a false positive detection.
I mean, I would assume it's almost a necessity at first to have a human element, since the AI needs time to build up and learn what cheating looks like. It's something, and this might be slightly tangential, but I've been wondering why companies have struggled with this. My main point of contention here is CS:GO. I've seen a decent bit of CS:GO videos that deal with people just doing what the game calls Overwatch cases, where somebody is watching someone cheat and they determine whether they've cheated, and that they have a whole spreadsheet they can fill out with what the person's done. And I assume that's just to train some type of AI to be able to do that job in future.
Could be, yeah. I mean, it sounds like it likely is the case. The thing is, bots are really, really, really difficult to stop, right? Because all a bot's really doing at the end of the day is moving your cursor around and maybe pressing WASD when you're in a shooter. And it's very difficult to know if a script is pushing W to move forward or if you as a player are doing that, right? The server, which is validating everything, it just says, yep, I'm moving forward, right? That's all the server knows. So to discern that is really, really difficult. So where kind of an AI comes in is that it's able to discern inhumanly fast responses, for example, or very consistent pacing. If it always takes you shoot at an interval of exactly 2 times per second and there's exactly 500 milliseconds between every shot, right? No human being is that accurate. But if you consistently do that as a script, it becomes extremely apparent, there's no way that this is not a robot.
Yeah, and the other thing that AI is really great at, even when script and bot builders get really creative about trying to put randomization into place. The reality is, of course, human behavior and the patterns of an actual genuine human player will always be quite different from an AI, and the AI doesn't quite have the amount of data, or let's say the AI would, let's say the bot, right? The bot builders don't have the amount of data that we have on how players behave and move in game, etc., right? So we might have data from millions of players, and we can kind of start training the AI on that to understand, oh, well, how does a genuine human player act versus how do these confirmed bots act, right? And anyone who just kind of falls out of that pattern is at least flagged for, something might be suspicious there.
It's awesome that we have a game plan in place for this and not, the Valve strategy of let volunteers from the community just parse over videos, report people for banning, and do nothing with it. So yay us. Speaking of servers, how's this for a segue? There's going to be a whole bunch of players from all across the world in Ember Sword, at least. That's what we're seeing in terms of, the spread of people in the Discord, for example. So, and we've mentioned that the world's going to be huge and that we're doing everything possible to make it, easily playable on many machines, and more importantly, easily playable with many people on screen. So with that in mind, will all players be on one realm, or will the map be mirrored on different realms and servers that players from different regions and countries play on?
Right. So when it comes to this, first of all, obviously we have, just like you said, Svetlin, an audience all around the world, and just for latency's sake, it already makes sense to provide some regions. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that land in one region is different than land in another region. So if you own a piece of land, you'll own that same piece of land and the same stuff will be on it in every region, right? However, these regions make a great way to provide the local players with the best possible game experience. That being said, right, all of this this infrastructure is freely accessible even if you're in another region. So if you're in Europe but all your friends are in the US, you want to play with them, right? You can totally do that. But there's definitely going to be that region split. And then also obviously there is, although our game world is really big, there is a finite world, right? So there's going to be some point potentially where, due to player base growth, eventually there's just too many players flocking into a region, and at that point, yes, we will obviously create an additional shard to be played in that particular region, so that we don't suffer from the situation where it's literally that many players that you're just drowning in fellow players as you walk into any town.
Yeah. And I would assume it stands to reason that NFTs are going to be mirrored, because that's kind of the selling point of the game.
That's kind of what I mentioned, right?
Yeah,
so those are accessible in any one of the regions, and they're the same thing essentially.
Joris, anything to add? Because this was a point of contention in our pre-podcast, preamble.
Yeah, it's a bit of a complicated question to answer, but essentially we try to fit as many people in a single world as makes sense, right? And then once there's overflow, we just spin up more servers or more realms, if you will. And also, if you're in Europe, for example, but you want to play with your friends in the US, you can just hop onto the US servers and play there. You're not confined to to Europe. You're not confined to Asia, so you can play with your friends whenever you want.
That is really
exactly.
Here's a fun one, a couple of fun ones actually, quote unquote fun ones. Of course, all of these have been pretty fun. To round out the podcast, this is a bit of a conceptual one. What games do you guys think could have benefited from having an NFT of blockchain element earlier within their development?
A few come to mind. Like RuneScape is one of them. I know I keep mentioning RuneScape. I'm sorry. At least I'm not saying Neocron, right? It's
don't say the magic word.
Don't say it. No, but in RuneScape, in the beginning there were these party hats, which came from some event that happened at the time. You could only get them from the event, and then 3 years later there weren't that many left anymore, and the player base had grown. So having a party hat was really cool because there was only a few thousand of them in the game. But then, due to some duping bug, people managed to duplicate the party hats, and so someone managed to create thousands upon thousands of party hats. So they basically inflated the market a lot, making them almost useless, and one person, like one big whale, just owned all of the party heads, right? And owned the entire economy and could set the price any way they'd want to.
Sheesh, bummer.
Which obviously could have never happened if it was on chain. And then another one which I guess comes to mind is Fortnite. In the beginning in Fortnite, they had this skin which was like a skeleton skin. And it was like in the first or second season or something. And if you met a player with the skeleton skin in-game, you knew you were screwed, right? Because it was like a Season 1 thing, right? So they had been playing for a while. So it kind of became like a little bit of a like inside joke. If you were playing the game and you saw a skeleton guy, you were screwed, right? And then Epic was like, oh, well, everybody wants it. We can make some good money. Let's just sell it again. And it became completely useless, right? Because now everybody had one. Now your 6-year-old nephew had the skeleton skin, and he sucks at Fortnite. So suddenly it didn't, it kind of lost its value, and that was just too bad.
Yeah. I think for me,
it's Neocron, isn't it?
No, okay. I'll start out with World of Warcraft. Definitely Neocron too, of course. I have to mind my reputation there. No, but World of Warcraft obviously created an immense amount of value in its items, and if you just see the amount of bans that occurred there for massive transactions on like sales of items and characters and so on and so forth, where literally sometimes things were being sold against the terms of service for almost $100,000 in a single transaction, and then people get banned the very next few days or so. I think there's better ways to handle that. I would say, Neocron, but from maybe a slightly different perspective, which is this notion that when you do these kind of things on chain, you also think more about what absolute supply should be and proper limitations to generating these things, et cetera, et cetera. It all tends to be a bit more secure and better worked out. And I remember there was a moment in Neocron where literally a bug reared its head, some ghost in the machine that I think to this day it hasn't been diagnosed why on the world that happened, right? And basically at some in some corner of one of the main zones in the city, a stream of items literally started dropping from the sky, and they were VIP penthouse apartment keys, and not just single ones, but stacks of 1,000 apiece, right? And they were just piling up in the corner over there. And so obviously some people ran by and started gathering those, and it took quite a while before anyone found out that was happening in that little corner. And by that time, people had made off with literally millions upon millions of these keys. And the problem was that was about the most expensive item in the game, clocking in at something over 1 million credits. So a single stack was like 1 billion credits. And since it was not caught in time, first of all, obviously, there was some significant economic inflation because everyone was a billionaire. and then there was the other odd side effect that because it was a skill-based game, and you had these skills and sub-skills, and you had intelligence, which had barter as a sub-skill, and if you had even 1 point in barter, if you made any transaction at a shop, you would be given intelligence experience for it based on the size of the transaction.
Oh, God.
And so within a few days, the whole world was just crawling with these Psy monks, which were the ones that had up to a level 100 in intelligence and also up to a level 100 in Psy. And there were just Psy monks everywhere with level 5 in Psy and level 100 in intelligence. Because they simply created their character, put 1 point into barter, and then just sold 1,000 of these apartment keys, netting not just 1 billion credits, but also maxing out their character's intelligence. and I think that's one of those examples of where, oh crap, if we had thought more about absolute limits to the quantities of how things get generated and really clean rules as to the odds and frequency at which things get generated as we do on chain, that probably never would have happened.
I legit cannot wait until you bring in a couple more Neocron stories triggered by it's like your Vietnam almost. So I can't wait until somebody hunts down all of the mentions and just makes a Neo compilation.
Well, this is what happens when you're there, like in the very early years when, people are still building MMORPGs from their garages.
Yeah.
Great experiences happen, but also, the funniest disasters.
Svetlin, didn't you mean a Neocron pilation?
I was desperately trying to
welcome.
make my brain, say the words funnily, but it just shut down in the middle of the word, and I didn't want to seem like I can't speak, because this is kind of my job. So anyway, moving on. One of the biggest mysteries in Ember Sword. What the heck type of animal is Whiskers?
Right. Well, there's a question. I heard the suggestion a catcoon, sort of a cat meets a raccoon. I've heard mentions of maybe it's a red panda. I think honestly it's a mystical creature that comes to our art director Sage in his dreams and whispers ideas of Neocron into his ear. And then there's the rumors that sometimes at night something scurries into the office and a bunch of the snacks are gone, but we're still wondering whether that's exactly. It's probably just one of the interns.
They don't get to leave the office.
And we also buy them red suits just for synergy and to keep the bit alive. Good. It's good to know that he's a literal sleeper agent. Moving on. This one is purely self-indulgent, but hey, I edit these, so I can do this. What are the chances of me ever DMing some sort of Ember Sword themed D&D campaign? We had a whole episode of the podcast that was dedicated to D&D stories. I love doing offbeat episodes of the show every once in a while, as the listeners know, to, present a side of us that, shows, yes, we are in fact human and we enjoy things. So with that in mind, yes, that is absolutely a possibility. In fact, should, or rather when, I make my way over to Denmark and hang out with the guys in the office, I may or may not have a little something prepared, of course, cleared by our narrative designer, Sam, for maximum accuracy, so I don't make an ass out of myself. And we may or may not have some cameras set up, and maybe some dice are going to get thrown. We're going to see what happens. So we're going to leave you with that one. Thank you for everybody. Oh, yeah.
That is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we are so on board with that, Svetlin. I mean, I got my dice pouch ready.
Ooh, you have a dice pouch? Damn.
Oh, yeah. Take that stuff seriously.
That's not a euphemism, by the way.
No, not at all.
Something pet rock. Great. Well, you've locked yourself in.
Yep. Just wrap it up.
You're an absolute lock.
Just downhill from here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Luckily, the hill stops. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you to my guests. What's up?
I was gonna say Svetlin still needs his B-roll, right?
That's right. Oh, I have a ton. I could just take some from other episodes. Who's gonna know?
We just gotta find a segue back to the pet rock, and in some way have like some pet rock breeding grounds in the first release of the game.
Oh Jesus! This is all staying in. You are trapped here until I do the outro. Ahem. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you to my guests for participating. We hope that, shedding some light on additional aspects of Ember Sword is interesting for you guys. It seems to be, but, we always enjoy recording these, so look forward to more of these in the future. Thanks, guys, for participating. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, you made it to the end. Congratulations. That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news. We're all over the internet. Go to embersword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/embersword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. Drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about Ember Sword.